Hi, my name is Andrew Cox. I'm a technology specialist at Microsoft, and I wanted to introduce you all to Dynamics and Power Platform at a really high level, start to introduce some of the concepts and really the hope that we at Microsoft have for the customers that choose to partner with us. So I've got about a 10-minute presentation worked up here, and I'd like to begin with a personal story. And I think this relates to the enterprise buying cycle. You all will have to be the judge of that, and I'll leave it up to you. All right, so a couple of years back, we had an opportunity to build a new house. And in building that house, we had to make some simple choices, like where exactly was the service door going to go and color of the shingles and such. But we also had a couple other choices too. Our contractors came back and asked us, did we want to add on an upgraded electrical service? Do we want to run a gas line out, in this case, to a detached garage for the cold winters in Minnesota? But we looked at these add-ons, this bill of materials, and all we saw was dollar signs. So we didn't go with any of these. About a year later, we bought a plug-in hybrid vehicle. And guess what? That hybrid vehicle, it needed that 240 volt service in order to get a 1 hour quick charge time. So we could at this point, I suppose, triple back and do this after the fact, which would cost a lot more money, or we could simply just live with our choice. And in this case, that's actually what we've done here. We've got about a 12-hour charge time, which means we're not getting the full value out of our dollars that we'd hoped to save by using pure electric. All right, so what does this have to do with the enterprise buying cycle? I'm going to sketch out another version of a write-up here that I think will answer that question. But again, I'll leave it up to you. So let's begin with our customer, everything revolving around that experience. And here's an overly simplified version of the enterprise and divisions it cuts across. Let's start with marketing. So think email campaigns or social selling. Marketing handing off leads over into sales. And sales, of course, doing their best to drive top line revenue growth and push deals down that funnel. Sales handing off hopefully closed won deals over into ERP or back office. And ERP eventually handing off into a service organization, maybe starting new contracts or answering questions and such for new customers. All right, so there's our overly simplified version of the enterprise. Let's see a couple examples and talk about buying cycles across, in this case, two divisions. We're going to focus on sales and ERP here. So let's say, for example, your director of operations or the CSO goes out and they've got an initiative to increase efficiency with their sales team. Maybe it's offline mobile selling applications. Perhaps it's artificial intelligence to start to bring in insights around which opportunities are most worthy of spending time on. So the sales division sends out RFPs, they land on a few handful of vendors, and they select, let's call it solution A, to meet their needs. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit here. Maybe a few months, maybe it's a few years, and back office or finance and operations has released budget. So they go out and they're looking at ways to streamline the invoice and billing process, maybe add in workflows and redundancy checks so there's less billing errors. They go out and they land on their own solution. Let's call it solution B. So respectively, each of these groups has what they need, but there's always these intersection points, right? That integration areas that these solutions really need to talk to each other and really have a fine communication. So one of those common integration points is the quote to cash process. So think about perhaps a scanned PDF of a new contract that a salesperson sold. It gets pushed over into back office, but instead of a $200,000 invoice, it's manually miskeyed at, say, a $20,000 invoice. So this is potentially a big problem. So what can we do to bridge these gaps? Well, there's certainly lots of options here. I just want to share a couple that come to mind. One might be as simple as, let's call it re-platforming. And, I probably shouldn't say simple. Why don't I say as elegant? Because if we can take something like Solution B and move that to the same platform that sales is using, well, data would just coexist. In fact, we'd have a common data model or a common data language between both sales and ERP that we wouldn't have to integrate. But we appreciate that enterprise don't often go out and shop new solutions all at once. It's a phased approach. So what do we do for today? Well, we could look at building an integration. And this is probably the most common approach, right? But integration, of course, comes with a couple notable costs. One being, well, cost, the money required to hire developers and people to come in and write those APIs. We also think about stability. So while today, maybe for the next 2 or 3 months, that integration is stable, when solution B decides to upgrade to a new version, that stability starts to drop off. So then you've got to hire that integration team back in and rewrite that connection. I want to introduce now another option, and this is something that is unique to Microsoft. It's called Power Platform. And what Power Platform is, well, it's a platform, and it sits underneath the entire organization. And what's really powerful about this is that it exists not only for Microsoft solutions, but Power Platform is scalable and flexible enough to start to fill these gaps, like this quote to cash challenge, regardless of the solutions that are in place. So let me offer just a couple examples to make this a little more realistic. Let's say that perhaps marketing is interested in getting more information about marketing campaigns, right? When they send out an email blast, what is the actual effect on revenue? Now, quite often we see companies using, in this case, 3 different solutions here. Think marketing qualified leads that are passed into sales that are eventually sent off to become orders and billings inside of ERP. Power Platform is able to run the analytics across, in this case, 3 different systems and provide insights that marketing can use to fine-tune how they're going to market with their campaigns and the dollars that they're spending. Here's another example. Let's say you've got perhaps an electrical engineering team, and they're going out on site and they're quoting in the field. They might have a very specialized process for running those quotes, and the cost to build a custom mobile application is often quite high. And just like you think about maintaining integrations, you've also got to think about maintaining that mobile application. Power Platform gives your average business user, could even give your quoting team the ability to build their own mobile applications really through an intuitive graphical interface. Here's a last example. You think too about our diagram. We've got different systems in place. How do you start to share data across systems in a way that's automatic and reduces those chances for error? Power Platform is able to take, for example, it might be contract renewal dates and push that from ERP back into sales. We might move that over to service or even show up in the marketer's view so they can start to write campaigns about upcoming renewal dates for groups of customers. All of this is the ability to flow data across different systems without having to write hard-coded integrations. So taking a step back, this is Power Platform, at least at a really high summary. The ability to run rich analytics and get insight from all of the technology that perhaps you've already invested in. Writing mobile applications from a citizen developer perspective and not having to hire in expensive or unique resources. And also the ability to flow data across any system or any interface in the enterprise. So taking a look at all this as one picture, this is Dynamics 365, at least at a really high level. And of course we offer line of business applications like for sales and for ERP. But Dynamics 365 is really an entire system that works well together. And for customers that don't think about upgrading the entire stack at the same time, there's Power Platform, allowing you to think about getting what you need for the organization today, but not having to lock in choices for the future. So much like my example of the garage, we can go back after the fact, and even as our needs change, in this case our assets changed, we can still go in and wire up these connections without having to go through with additional cost and being locked into choices that perhaps we've made in the past. So I hope that's helpful to understand a little bit in more depth how Microsoft brings Dynamics 365 to the enterprise and how Power Platform adds that flexibility to really, quite simply, make it all work. Thank you.